The world has gone through many bad events and years, such as the plague, the World War I and II, and the year 2020, which we all lived through. And we saw the spread of diseases and the people losing their jobs and even their lives. But there was a year that passed over humanity that all historians agreed was the worst year in human history. This year is 536 AD, and it's without a doubt the worst year in human history. This year was known as the Year of Darkness, and when I say darkness, I mean literally the world was living in darkness. People woke up from sleep like any normal day, and suddenly there was no sun. But the people said it may just be eclipse, and it will end after a few hours. But day after day, the darkness still covered the world. And of course, in the year 536, there was no science or anything. The people lived a simple life raising sheep and goats. So the people said, that's it, man. This is the end of the world. This darkness that has covered almost more than the half of the world will cause disasters. Maybe you'll tell me it's just dark, man. I mean, I like the dark, actually. Yeah, man, you like the dark and only come out at night like a bat, but believe me, the Mother Nature doesn't like the dark at all. First, where does the life circle begin? Of course, it begins with plants, which give us oxygen and food. And this means that without plants, there is no life. And of course, these plants need sunlight to live, and the absence of sunlight at that time led to the death of the plants. And at that time, the people relied on agriculture. There was no preserved food or a can of beans that would last for 5 years. And also the rain stopped because there was no sun, and the rain needs sun. You know, the rain cycle when seawater evaporates and rises to form clouds, and then the clouds form rain, and all this complex process. So, if there is no sun, there will be no rain. And the weather became very cold, and the summer turned into winter, and all of this led to the emergence of famine and deadly diseases all over the world. This disaster affected all the countries of the world and wiped out civilizations from the world as if they never existed. But first, we must know how the disaster happened, how the world turned into a place of darkness. At that time, the people didn't know the reason, of course, and the reason was discovered in the modern era just a few years ago. The scientists have found some ice pieces from Iceland and analyzed some of the volcanic ash that was inside these pieces. In the end, they come out to the conclusion that there was a huge volcanic eruption in Iceland in 536 AD. And this eruption may be the largest volcanic eruption in history, at least during the period in which humans lived on Earth. I mean, don't tell me there was an explosion in the dinosaurs era or millions of years ago. In the human era, this is the biggest explosion. This huge volcanic eruption caused huge amounts of ash, and also the lava caused the seawater to evaporate, which caused a giant cloud. And you should know that the volcanic ash is very light, and this means that the slightest wind movement will make it suspended in the air. So,
this is ultrafine volcanic ash, similar to what we think happened in the 6th century at Krakatoa. It's so fine that even just a baby's breath of air will keep it suspended by minute turbulence. It will never fall to the earth as long as the air is moving, which of course it always does high up in the atmosphere.
So because of the lightness of this ash, it will float in the atmosphere and it will take years to fall to the ground. And this makes us understand the reason for the darkness that spread in the world in the year 536. This volcanic ash was literally blocking out the sun. And when the sun is gone, the disasters begin in the world. The first thing, of course, is people's panic and fear of the end of the world. Imagine yourself waking up and getting ready for breakfast, and suddenly you find the world dark, there's no sun, and the people are screaming in the street and think it's the end of the world. So what you gonna do here? Of course, you will scream with them. So chaos spread in the world and people become like crazy. And of course, the worst thing is that agricultural crops are dead and the famine began, which has spread all over the world. And with all this, the degree of cold increased. And hunger and cold caused illness. At that time, the first plague pandemic in history happened. This disease has spread all over the world, but the largest and most dangerous spread was in Europe. This disease is very dangerous and deadly. It starts with the patient having a high temperature and panic attacks and severe swellings until his flesh rots and die. It was very painful and difficult way to die, and the recovery rate was very low. This disease was killing thousands of people every day, and corpses were filling the streets. And people's fear of getting infected made the corpses rot in the streets. And of course, I don't need to describe the smell. According to historians, this disease killed more than 100 million people over the years. And away from plague and diseases, famine was also a major disaster. And one of the countries that suffered a severe famine was China. According to historians, the weather was very cold, and summer turned into winter because of the ash in the air. And this destroyed the agricultural crops and made people literally die of hunger. And during this period, there were disasters happening on the other side of the world. There are sources saying that there were old civilizations that ended in this period in North and South America. Civilizations that existed for hundreds of years in countries such as Peru and Mexico. All of them were destroyed by this disaster and the spread of cold and disease and famine. And because of all these disasters, everyone agreed that the year 536 is the worst year in the human history. But it's not the worst year in history because the dinosaurs will be upset, man. Because the year of the dinosaurs' extinction may be the worst year in history. Maybe you'll tell me, thank God, man, I wasn't alive at that time. But what if I told you that this disaster could happen again? There are many dormant volcanoes that could erupt at any moment. But let's imagine, for example, just for example, what if a similar explosion happened in our time? Of course, first, thousands of people will die because of the lava and fire, and the darkness will spread all over the world. And the climate will change all over the world, and the temperatures will drop significantly. And of course, the most of the agricultural crops will destroy. But the situation will not be like the Middle Ages because we have a preserved food and we have the can of beans that will last for 5 years. But despite this, there will be a large shortage of food, and perhaps there will be no export, and every country will keep the food for itself. And the satellites and communications will be completely cut off, and the air traffic will stop, of course. And the energy and food sources will be very limited, and of course, this will cause a war, and the strong will destroy the weak. And we don't know what the world war will be like today in the presence of nuclear weapons. So imagine, man, just a volcanic eruption could destroy the world. And yeah, man, that's it. Of course, if you're still here. Of course, man, don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me in my Instagram. And yeah, man, see you in the next video. Goodbye.